now a step in the right direction. That is what the US President Joe Biden has called Israel's agreement to 4-hour humanitarian pauses to let civilians evacuate.
However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has watered down the announcement, suggesting that the pauses would not apply to the whole of Gaza and that there is no official confirmation of a plan for recurring breaks.
Joining us now is Noga Tarnopolsky, a freelance journalist in Jerusalem. Noga, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Can you clarify for us what is actually happening in terms of these temporary pauses, temporary ceasefires? Because we heard it from the United States. What is Israel's position on it?
Yeah, this has actually already been happening for the past week or so. I think that the U.S. Announcement was aiming to formalize things and to make it, to kind of force a public commitment to it. But the fact of the matter is that for the past week or so, Israel unilaterally has paused its strikes on Gaza, on certain routes through Gaza. The aim is to help Gazans, civilian Gazans who are still in northern Gaza, north of the Gaza River, to go south to the area that's becoming more and more crowded, that has safe zones within it. And so the idea is to just help people move out of the actual war area. The Israeli government didn't make another announcement, but de facto it has been doing this for the past week. So I don't think there's any disagreement there.
And just in terms of what it has achieved, 50,000 people managed to make that journey to move out of the most seriously affected area. Is it hoped that more people will be able to follow and escape?
Yeah, that was 50,000 in one day, the figures that we got. I think that 750,000 Gazans, or even close to 1 million, have now been displaced from the north, which is the center of the real war zone, to the south. There are other dangers. First of all, Israel is also bombing in the south in certain areas. This is not a universal stop. It's pauses made in specific kind of routes, the Salahuddin route or the route along the sea, so that specifically so that people can move. But it's not an absolute stop in fighting at all. And the idea is just to get people out of the most dangerous area. I think many have taken advantage of it. There are occasional reports of people being impeded in this journey, but I think that speaking generally, it is working. You see there the image of really thousands and thousands of people moving south.
Aid agencies, though, saying it's nowhere near enough, and it's a long way short of what the US was calling for, which was multi-day pauses, isn't it, Noga? But can I ask you about another big problem for the Israeli administration, and that is the hostages. The Mossad chief and CIA chief meeting yesterday in Qatar. We had news last night, a promise of 2 hostages to be released today. Has there been any progress on that?
No, and I would be very careful. There's a lot of, I would say, psychological terror accompanying the rest of this wartime situation. So there was no promise made. What happened yesterday was that a different terror group, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, released a video showing a 77-year-old Israeli woman called Hannah Katzir and a 13-year-old boy, a boy who actually just turned 13 while he was in captivity, called Yagil Yaakov. And the Palestinian Islamic Jihad said that they would be released for humanitarian reasons that were not made clear. Neither of them has been released. And the video, which the families have asked media organizations not to broadcast, is basically shows them, under duress, making very angry statements. This has happened on occasion in the past 5 weeks or so. I would say once every 10 days or so, there have been this kind of dangling offers. We'll release these, we'll release. Sometimes rumors have had it that foreign passport holders, not Israelis, will be released, maybe American hostages. But the fact of the matter remains, in the background of all these rumors and all these kind of semi-promises that there are more than 240 Israeli hostages being held by Hamas or associated groups in Gaza, and their families and those who sympathize with their families are beginning to put extreme pressure on the Israeli government. The government, it's not clear to me that they're reacting, but there is that public pressure.
Of course. Just in terms of what Netanyahu does now, you said there's pressure from the families. There's also pressure from the United States. Blinken meeting many of the powers in the area. Of course, there is real concern about escalation. I just wonder, what is the feeling in Israel amongst the general population about the ongoing war, what Netanyahu is doing? Also, the change of tack, saying that actually Israel should run Gaza, and then being pressured by the United States saying actually Israel should not run Gaza and it should be up to the Palestinian Authority.
That's right. That is a really important point because it touches on so much of what is going on here. The Israeli government appears to Israelis locally to be barely functioning. And it has mixed messages, it has confusion, different ministers say opposing things. The Israeli army, for example, and the defense minister have very, very clearly said from the start that every Gazan who's being displaced by this war will be able to return home. Everyone will be able to come back to where they left. And now you have the Prime Minister who went on an American television network and kind of threw out a trial balloon saying, well, you know, we may have to stay there with security responsibility. Following that, some of his ministers, some of whom are very, very extremist. Netanyahu, I think it's worth saying before we continue, Netanyahu was a very unpopular prime minister before this started due to his efforts to crush the Israeli judiciary. And he's just gotten less popular, and he's in a coalition with people who have never even come near a ministerial table. So some of these extremists have in public come out and really expressed these kind of dreams of taking over Gaza. The White House has very clearly shot that down. And Israelis are, I'd say, mostly confused, but almost as much frightened, because any talk of that sort implies that their children, who are the soldiers, Israel's army is built on conscripted soldiers and reservists. So it means that their kids are going to have to be in Gaza, in a zone that Israelis considered a nest of terror for an undefined future. So that test balloon has not gone over well on either side of these discussions, but the government seems to be saying all sorts of things that then it doesn't stand behind, and that's causing great confusion.